I've explained the importance of dreams and how they relate to our conscious experience in previous videos, but for this video, I wanted to go into a little bit more detail on how to become a better dreamer or a more efficient dreamer, to allow ourselves to tap into that subconscious space more efficiently, which will then transfer over to a more interrelated conscious experience. First off, I'll start with some of the inhibitors of tapping into the dream space. This is both accessing your dreams and being able to remember your dreams. Because we're always dreaming. There's never a point where your subconscious space is not running. Even when you're awake, you're dreaming. Your subconscious experience is cataloging and interacting with our conscious experience. One of the biggest inhibitors that I've realized with dreams, and I've shared some videos specifically on this subject, was the ingestion of THC or weed, cannabis. This has been corroborated with many other people, but for whatever reason, tapping into the cannabis experience in many different ways slows down the ability to tap in to the subconscious dream experience. I've gone into saying it's possibly because when you're getting high or tapped into the cannabis experience, you're utilizing a lot of your subconscious energy. So when you go to sleep, the time and the energy that you're focusing on when you're in that space that would be utilized for dreams has been used during your conscious waking space. So you don't really have the same amount of access energy to tap into your dreams. Another connector to cannabis relating to sleep and the dream space is that, like alcohol, your sleep is going to be affected by anything that you put in your body. Food affects your sleep. Alcohol affects your sleep. Any kind of drugs affect your sleep in any kind of way. This is compared to having nothing extra in your body. I'm not saying that cannabis is bad. If you want to know more about my perspectives on cannabis, go look at some of the other videos. Cannabis is very beneficial in many different ways. But specifically in relating to our dream space, I've found that cannabis is one of the biggest inhibitors to us having that deep relationship with our dreams. So physiologically, cannabis affects our sleep space, which can affect our dreams. And specifically, when I wake up in the morning, there's no recollection, no recall of dreams when I have smoked weed. This is such an extreme event that I have stopped smoking weed and even ingesting weed altogether on more than a few occasions. The last time I even had any cannabis in my system was over a year ago. And it's a large part because of the relationship that I have to my dreams. And I'll get into this a little bit later, but as far as remembering your dreams, a big part of remembering your dreams is how you wake up in the morning. So having cannabis in your system also affects how you wake up in the morning, in the mind and in the time. I'll get into that in a little bit. But one of the next inhibitors, I mentioned it just now, is also alcohol. Alcohol affects the depth of your sleep. It completely throws all of your systems out of whack. And when you're not functioning at your highest capacity, you will be having to compensate for not having that flow in one way or another. And one of the easiest ways is within your sleep space. And when you're messing with your sleep space, you're messing with your dream space. So alcohol definitely does mess with your sleep space, which is inherently going to interrupt your dream space. Another inhibitor is constantly being indoors, disconnected from the outdoor antennas like trees in nature or even around people. If you're in a constant space of being locked into a box in work, 9 to 5, whatever it is, or even if you're not even allowing yourself to go outside, but constantly if you're inside working and then you go home, your subconscious doesn't have a space to fly and your conscious doesn't have a space to relax. So when you're sleeping, you're going to go into such a deep space of needing that deep sleep that you're not even going to be able to recall many of the spaces that could help you from the subconscious to the conscious. Video games is another time consumer. So I'm not speaking directly to like time on the clock, but like etheric time, the time of your experience. This time is consumed and creating other worlds. So if your imagination, if your experiences are limited to work and being inside of an apartment constantly, you're not going to have much to tap into in relation to dreams. But if you go out and experience a lot more, then you will have a lot more access points and triggers that will allow you to recall and tap into a deeper dream space. When you're playing a lot of video games, you're investing your time and your focus into artificial worlds that are ultimately going to inhibit your dream space, your dream connectors, because those are synthetic dream worlds and they're largely one-dimensional in a space that you're not really experiencing it other than your eyes. And this is the thing. Your eyes aren't really experiencing that world because your eyes are just mirroring. They're just receivers of a one-dimensional reality. It's your mind that's actually interpreting that world. But when you're out in nature, when you're out around the elements, when you're out around people, you're in higher dimensional spaces interacting on a deeper receiver experience to where it's not just your eyes, but the energy of your entire antenna that is your entire experience that is picking up these signals around you. So your body as the antenna out in nature is picking up the receivers and the antennas of the trees, the animals, the beings and the energies that we can't even interpret, that we can't even see, that we can't even consciously realize are around us. But if you're in a box locked into the focus of a one-dimensional video game reality, you can see how that's going to affect your subconscious dream space. Another inhibitor is to have an inconsistent sleep cycle. So if your sleep cycles are not regulated, you're not going to get in a groove of being able to relax during certain times of your sleep space, tap into certain times of a dream space when you're in that cycle. You're going to be able to pick up, if you're in a regulated sleep cycle, you're going to create a relationship with that sleep, with your dream space, with your subconscious that will, in a sense, leave the doors open. They'll be more familiar. So dream spaces will be more familiar to tap into. They'll be easier to tap into if you're constantly engaging in those spaces at a certain time. So it's just like an athlete playing a sport, getting that muscle memory. So you're getting that subconscious muscle memory going. And if you don't have a regulated, consistent form, a consistent practice, then it's going to limit your ability to tap into your dream space. And the more you practice, the more you tap into that space, the deeper you can go. It'll become familiar and you'll learn a lot more and you'll be able to take the next steps that are available to you once you invest that time and energy into it. Another big inhibitor to recalling our dreams is the way we wake up in the morning. So alarm clocks are huge inhibitors to recalling your dream space because you're instantly tapped into this space. And when you instantly tap into this space, you're instantly blocking yourself off from recalling the experiences of your subconscious space. And since you are both of these worlds, and this conscious world is dedicated, the linear conscious reality is dedicated to locking you into this experience. The conscious reality is linear, while the subconscious reality is nonlinear. So in a linear space, you have to maintain a focus, whereas in a subconscious space, a focus actually breaks your connection to that world. So if you're completely invested in a conscious linear reality, you're going to have a difficult time being able to recall and tap into a subconscious non-linear reality. And even in that breakdown, it's not like you're recalling all of the subconscious reality into a conscious perspective. What I'm talking about when you're recalling dreams, you're basically recalling the abstract interpretation of what's going down. You're never going to be able to completely absorb the entire dream space of your subconscious because it's just, you'll explode in a sense. There's too much energy. There's too much going on there. The best we can do is pull little nuggets out of that space. And that's what I'm saying. Those little nuggets are very important and very helpful in many different ways, in a sense of allowing us to tap into spaces that could heal ourselves, tapping into information from our ancestors, tapping into very therapeutic energies. Those nuggets are basically a larger part of ourselves, speaking to ourselves, healing ourselves, guiding ourselves, our conscious reality into a better place. In that potential, you're going to have challenges, just like anything else. This is why children have nightmares, because those nightmares are triggering you to stay out of that space, because this experience wants to anchor you completely in the conscious linear reality at the expense of your subconscious reality. Because the more you are anchored in this linear reality, the more that other entities can siphon energy off of your subconscious non-linear reality. So children will be attacked more so because it's attacking the anchor points, the beginnings of your relationship to your non-linear reality for the future. So once you turn off those connectors, once you turn off that relationship to your subconscious reality early on, it'll make it that much harder to tap into that space later on in your life. This is why the entertainment industry is so heavily vested in world creation in relation to Disney movies, theme parks, cartoons. Some of the worst foods are focused towards children. Look at McDonald's, the Happy Meals, anchoring you deeply into this space. For what? That's what we have to ask ourselves. For what? So just like I said, the cannabis affects the way, and alcohol affects the way that we sleep and the way that we wake up. This is also true for the foods that we eat. Foods are going to mess up your sleep cycle. Foods that are heavily based in sugars and caffeine, these are going to affect the way that we wake up in the morning. Having a heavy caffeine addiction is going to heavily affect the way you wake up in the morning, because as soon as you wake up, it's just like another alarm clock. As soon as you wake up, you're instantly thinking about getting up and going and get that cup of coffee. So you're instantly anchoring yourself. Instead of recalling the dream space, you're anchoring yourself in this reality, physically and psychologically. And those are just two antennas that are automatically cut off. So alarm clocks are big inhibitors to tapping into your dream space because it's anchoring you here immediately. I would say the biggest thing that's keeping a lot of people from tapping into that dream space when you wake up in the morning is how we wake up in the morning. Slowly waking up in the morning is going to allow you to recall layers and layers and layers of dreams that you've been tapped into throughout the night, throughout your sleep space. When I say the way you wake up in the morning, I'm meaning the in-between space, the times when you're kind of awake but still sleep. That is the sweet spot. To wake up slowly, to slowly allow yourself to climatize to becoming awake. That space to where you can almost go back to sleep. That's the sweet spot to recall your dreams, because you're transitioning into your conscious focus, but you're still connected. Your antennas are still up. Your subconscious antennas are still up and active. And in that space, you can utilize that time to recall not only the last dream that you just left out of, but the dreams that you tapped into throughout the night. Allow yourself to slowly wake up, to hold on to that sleep space for as long as you can. Don't allow yourself to start piecing together what you have to do today, what you did yesterday, getting emotionally tethered to whatever it is that's going on in your conscious reality. Allow yourself to, in a sense, be in a meditative space, a completely blank space. In that moment of transitioning from the subconscious to the conscious, hold a meditative space, as much nothing as you can hold. And in that space, you'll see it'll be easier to track down those threads that are connected to these various dreams that you've had. When you're constantly putting together like what you have to do in the day, what happened yesterday, what's going to happen today, you're getting your emotions, your energy and motion is getting anchored into the conscious experience. And in those anchors, you're pulling yourself away from the subconscious recall. Those emotions are, in a sense, slowing down time, because time is being anchored in the conscious experience, whereas time in the subconscious reality, things are moving so fastly. How many dreams, how much space do you have? How many experiences can you have in a space of 5 minutes in a dream, compared to in the conscious reality, what happens here? So when you're piecing together that conscious reality with your emotions, with your focus, you're making it that much harder to tap into all of the experiences that have happened in your subconscious reality outside of linear time. This is another reason why children have difficulty with dreams and automatically get anchored into nightmares, is because they're so locked into an emotional breakdown. So their experiences will be immediately attached to emotions, which will lock them out of a deeper interpretation of what dreams are. So on the other hand, when you don't have or aren't inclined to attach emotion to experiences on a deep level, then that will also allow you to tap into recalling your dreams and also experiencing your dreams on a deeper level. So like I said, it'll allow you to tap into that space because you're not slowing down the time, and you'll also be able to tap into that space on a deeper level because your dream worlds won't be broken by emotional tethers, by time slowing tethers. The subconscious space is like a conglomerate of all of your experiences. So to be able to tap into that space, you're only going to get a little crumb here and there. And those crumbs, those little fractions of a moment is really all that we need to transfer or convert that energy or realization into the conscious reality. Those little nuggets, those little moments in times that are just a hair of a focus, that's all our ancestors need to connect with us and communicate with us. Because anything more than that, any kind of energy coming from the infinite space of the subconscious reality, if you get too much information, too much energy in that moment, in that space, and try to transfer it into a conscious reality, that's when the non-linear reality becomes chaotic in a linear space. It'll have the potential to like overcharge a circuit, and then you'll either black out of that experience, or it'll just be seen as static. This entire experience is a living subconscious experience. It's the millions of different people, or billions of different people, or perspectives, or energies, focuses, eyes, interpreters, are just a more complex speck of the subconscious infinite space. So basically, this entire experience is just a sliver, one sliver of focus compared to the other experiences that are also just a sliver of a focus in the infinite space of all experiences. So the individual is just a broken down version of the entire experience, a less complex version of the entire experience, the allness of the experience. So an individual as a reflection of the entire experience, both being slivers of all that is. So you are a living clock, just as the experience itself is a living clock. The time of the experience is its own time, and your time is your own time based upon how you perceive time and experience time. Time is not limited to how you experience in the linear conscious reality. There is also the time of the subconscious experience, and both of them are running. And you can affect your conscious linear time when you tap into the non-linear subconscious clocks and time-based experiences in the subconscious reality. This is why I'm saying there's a lot of healing potential and access, intelligence that exists in our dream space, that if we were to allow ourselves to tap into that, not only individually, but I don't like using this word as much as before, but collectively, if we were to tap into that space, we'd be more of who we are and less of who we're conditioned to be. In that conditioning, a lot of that conditioning is based upon how our emotions are triggered. So if we're allowing ourselves to be limited by our emotions in our conscious space, in our conscious time, that is definitely affecting our subconscious connectors and our subconscious time, both individually and beyond. So like I said before, children are heavily targeted in the dream space because it affects their entire reality, the time that they experience in the conscious reality for their entire lifetime. So they're immediately hit with nightmares because it triggers your emotional response. And when you're hit with a nightmare, it's a test to see how deeply you're anchored into the emotional reaction. If you're anchoring yourself in the energy and motion, the conscious linear time, then you will break, or at the very least, separate yourself heavily from your subconscious potentialities, your subconscious time, your subconscious experiences, the information that comes from that space, the connections that come from that space. This is why the television, the education system, your job, a lot of these interactions are based upon anchoring you into the emotional foundation. And this is not to say just like completely just don't be emotional, like cut them all out. There's a difference between that and being aware of emotion and utilizing emotion as a tool, as a learning experience. There's a difference there. Another reason why this manipulative experience utilizes the emotional space is because it also anchors you into more of a narcissistic perspective of reality. And when you're in the narcissistic perspective of reality, narcissists are creating worlds upon worlds upon worlds to convince themselves out of being aware of the world that others are experiencing, because they're heavily invested in the space of manipulation. So they are creating time, they're creating experiences that are based upon generating other worlds for other people, because they've generated a narcissistic world for themselves to keep themselves from empathizing with the people around them that they are manipulating on a regular basis. So narcissists are going to have if you're a narcissist, that's another inhibitor. It's going to have narcissists are going to have heavy difficulties with tapping into their dream space because they are constantly developing conscious worlds, conscious connections, creating buffers between the same way they create buffers between them and other people. They're creating buffers between them and themselves, the deeper parts of themselves. And they have surpassed being subjected to their emotions and have turned those emotions into a weapon, and those weapons become their reality. So they have perfected in many different ways the emotional space and have used it as a weapon. So when you do that, you're anchoring yourself more in the linear space and pulling yourself away from the subconscious space. Those worlds, that information, that breakdown of reality that narcissists are experiencing creates a fog in both the conscious and the subconscious world. This is when you're going into sociopathic behavior, psychopathic behavior, because they're creating more and more and more separations between them and themselves, and also them and other people. So they are living in their artificial world, like gamers are living in an artificial world. It's basically like having a video game running, a one-dimensional video game running as your reality inside of you. They are creating an artificial subconscious reality. So when they have any kind of interactions with other people, the narcissistic behavior is an automatic response in order to hide the manipulative programming that they're putting on other people and on themselves. So they are not only doing that to other people, when they're doing that to other people, they are also doing that to themselves. When you do that to yourself, you're separating large parts of your connections, not only to yourself, but to everything that you're connected to. They become the actor, like in a movie. You're interacting with the movie. You're interacting with the movie script. But that actor is always just an actor. But when you invest your time and your energy so much so into the script of that movie, the movie becomes your world and you become the actor. When you become the actor, you lose touch with the person that you are outside of the movie, outside of the act. This is what narcissists are doing 24/7. And in a different way, this is what people who are disconnected with their dreams are doing 24/7. And definitely people who are heavily invested, emotionally especially, into the mainstream circuits. They're living in a movie. And that movie has become their all. It's become their entire reality. So when you replace who you are with who you are told to be, you're investing yourself in the movie and you're disconnecting yourself from a large part of the center line, the most optimal space that is your time and your subconscious time. So once you remove all or most of those inhibitors from that space and you're ready to start tapping into your dream space, one of the first things you have to do is set the intention. You have to set the intention that you want to enter into that space. You want to learn, you want to connect, whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe you want to connect with your ancestors. Maybe you want to heal something that you're dealing with. Whatever it is, set the intention. Talk to yourself. Write it down. Record it. Listen to it before you go to sleep. Whatever it is, read it. Set that intention in this space in some kind of way. And that will carry on into that dream space. You'll start to open those doorways. You'll start to trigger yourself. You'll start to put out that signal that this is what you want to do. And you will answer yourself. Once I got to that space, after I set the intention, and it wasn't very difficult for me to do that consciously because I had been dreaming since I was 2 years old. Like I consciously dreaming, consciously recalling my dreams since I was 2. I still remember dreams I've had since I was 2. And I'm almost 40 now. So I have almost 40 years of conscious dream recall. But once I wanted to get into a space of deep dream recall, deeper dream recall, that's when I started to have to do certain things, because you can't help but be anchored in the conscious reality, which is going to affect your dream space in some kind of way. So you have to do certain things to make those connections deeper. One of the things that I did was starting to write down my dreams. And this helps up to a certain point, because it's creating your relationship with time. It's creating an intention. When you go to sleep, you know you're going to wake up and have to write down those dreams. When you wake up in the morning, you're going to want to wake up slower, because you're going to want to recall as much of the dream as possible in order to write down as much of the dream as possible. When you're writing down that dream, you're also anchoring the dream in that time. And when you anchor yourself in that time, you're creating recall points. And when you hit that recall point, you can go to a deeper recall point. So many times, you can go to another dream. Once you're writing down a dream, some people who write down their dreams, they remember another dream that happened before that. And when they write down that dream, they remember another dream that happened before that. That's why I said this works up to a point, because, like, for me, writing takes a certain amount of time. And when you're writing down your dreams, you're really only going to allow yourself to remember as much of the dream as you can that will translate into the time that it takes to write it down. Now, compare this to recording your dreams with an audio recorder. Look how fast you can recall your dreams if you're not having to slow it down to write it down, because when you're writing it down, you're also forgetting a lot of the stuff that's going on too. So that's slowing down the time. The point being is that you have more time to recall more information when you're using less time to anchor it here. So recording with your voice is going to be faster than recording with a pen. So this is the second thing I did. After writing it down, I started to record it, and I could remember dreams that happened before the dream, all the way back to like 3:00 in the morning. So I was remembering details that were happening from when I would wake up in the morning at 3, or not even wake up in the morning, just because sometimes you wake up in the morning and that's another early in the morning, because you wake up a few times during the night, and those are other anchor points that you can use to recall a dream or many different dreams. So I would record moments in time, little specks of that dream that will just trigger the rest of that dream. So even to this day, if I listen to some of my old recordings, they'll just be like the trailer of a dream that will trigger the rest of the details that happen within that dream. That's another way to speed up your recall and allow you to tap in. When you're speeding up that recall, you're allowing yourself to tap into a deeper recall space. Now, one thing that I didn't realize that happens after recording your dreams, because I thought that was the best thing that ever happened. It's like, whoa, this is a lot faster than writing down my dreams, and I can recall so much more. What I didn't realize was possible is that, until I started to do it more, because you realize that there are limitations in needing something else to tap into that space. And a proof of that was, once I started to create that connection on a deeper layer, going from writing them down to recording them, I realized that when you're not limiting yourself to recording vocally, you can use a space of recording with your mind. And just as your voice moves faster than your pen, your mind moves faster than your voice. So if you can challenge yourself to remember an entire dream with just your mind without having to write it down, that is another kind of muscle memory, or a memory muscle, that allows you to not only tap into a deeper space of your dreams, but even remember more details of the dream. And when you're doing this, you're not only affecting your recall, you're affecting your ability to tap into dreams themselves when you're in the dream. So this recall is, in a sense, pumping up the muscles of your dream experience, because you're challenging yourself to experience more of the dream by realizing more of the detail and the space of the dream. So when you're challenging yourself to recall the dreams on a deeper layer, you're actually amplifying yourself to experience the dream on a deeper layer. So those are the 3 layers of dream recall as far as recording them that I've experienced, that are very crucial to at least making those connections with your dreams once you remove a lot of the inhibitors that block your dream space altogether. Once you start rolling with the dreams, then you can start experiencing the dreams on a deeper layer. And letting go of having to write them down and record them is opening up a lot more space in your mind and in those relationships between the conscious and the subconscious reality, which in turn allows you to be a better dreamer, be a deeper dreamer. A good way to remember these dreams is to create anchor points. Create trails of memories, little details here and there. When you're in a dream, challenge yourself to pick out a certain detail that is connected to the entire dream experience. And just remember that. Challenge yourself to remember just that detail, which will allow you to remember the entire dream. So that's like an anchor. And then create multiple anchors here and there, because don't try to remember the whole dream. Don't try to interpret the whole dream either. Like, don't try to make sense of it, because when you're making sense of it, you're adding linear emotions, conscious reality to a non-linear subconscious reality, and then you'll only allow yourself to go so far. You'll try to make sense of something that is infinite, and that's not how it works. Like I said, you're only really getting little crumbs of this space. You'll experience an entire dream only to get one little fine little detail out of that. And that could be something that happened in the dream itself, or maybe the way that you perceive the dream, or maybe all of the above. But it's really just about that dream. Like I said, when you're having these dreams, don't allow your conscious space to attach itself to the subconscious space, because a lot of that will invite in the emotions, and it'll invite in these inhibitors that will create these blocks. The less attachment that you have to these dreams, the more you'll be able to go into them. So like I said, create some tags, create some trails, create some anchor points. And when you wake up, and you're just, instead of recording them, you can do this when you're recording and when you're writing them down. But I've realized that it helps a lot when you're just remembering it with your mind. But even when you're writing them down, a way to remember them is to just create like an anchor point. Go to that anchor point and then start to venture out. Okay, well, this was here, this was there. Oh, this happened. This person was there. I was in this place. So like I said, remember the details. Where are you? What are you doing? Who's around you? What are the sounds? Can you feel anything? Are you eating something? Are you with people? Are you in a place that's familiar? Is it not familiar? Because, and another part of this, and I'll just go into this right now, is that a large part of your dreams are going to be happening in familiar places. So you'll have a large portion of your dreams will be in your family home. They'll be in your school, places that you spend a lot of time in or have spent a lot of time in. They'll be around people that you've been around with a lot. There are themes to dreams. So themes of locations, landscapes. So some of the heavy landscapes that surround us that are universal in a sense are schools, homes, like a party environment. Hospitals are another one. And what I've come to interpret is this place of transition. So moving up and down, left and right, like movement affects time. So when you're another way to recall your dreams is to realize how you're moving in that space is going to be different than how you move in this space. So if you're running or flying in a dream, you'll be more inclined to realize that you're in a dream because the surroundings are moving differently. You're feeling differently. You can run faster. You can fly. You can do all these different things. And that can be another trigger to your dream, to realizing that you're in a dream. So one thing that also triggers is the sensation of moving upwards. So elevators are another thing that can move you in and out of spaces. Elevators in dreams, I've come to realize, are taking you in and out of different realms, different spaces. So if I'm in a lobby somewhere or a hotel, a building that has an up and down, and you can go into an elevator, that's another way to switch from one place to another. Because you're going into that box, the door's closing, you can open that door, can open into another world. This is in the movie Inception. This happens too. The movie Inception, Leonardo DiCaprio's character going into his different dream spaces in an elevator. He's going into the different worlds of his subconscious dream anchors, and they're different places. They're a place with his wife. They're a place where with his kids, different experiences in his world. It's a closing of one world and an opening up to another world, going into another space. So elevators could be another anchor point or trigger in your dream recall. I could go into a deep breakdown of that maybe in another video, but yeah, that's a totally different story. But in that, I'll go into the next space of realm. So yeah, there's a dream place that I've known and confirmed over and over again that I just refer to as the dead place. And it'll start off where everything looks the same, everything looks normal. But once you start focusing on the details, you'll realize that everything around you that's supposed to be living is actually dead. And I haven't quite broken down what this is as if I'm supposed to. All I know is it's an actual place that you can find yourself in the dream space. And I've gone there multiple times, and it'll be just like being in a horror movie. Everything will be dead. People's faces will be melting. One thing to realize in this place, if you're surrounded by cats or cats are constantly messing with you, even animals, it doesn't even have to be a cat, but specifically cats hang out in this space a lot. But animals in general also interact in this space. So it could be a bird. A bird can trigger you in the dead space. A dog can trigger in the dead space. But cats are heavily interactive in this space. So if you find yourself seeing cats a lot and looking around and there's cats all over the places, or a cat is trying to get your attention in this space, focus in on the more of the detail, and you'll realize a lot of the times, if you're there, that you're probably in the dead place. So yeah, the dead, there's these places I've come to realize that they're themes. They're themes for certain experiences. What they are completely, I haven't broken that down yet. I have an idea on what it is based upon my own personal experiences, but yeah, it goes deeper than that for different people. So yeah, there's like the dead place. There's hospitals. You'll find yourself in hospitals, schools, home, definitely. Like I said, hotel elevators, lobbies, airports, places that of in like transitional places that move you or that you go to. Focusing on the details will allow you to trigger yourself into a space of lucidity and hold the dream open. Now, this is kind of like a catch-22 because focusing on on the details of the dream allows you to hold the space open, but you have to focus on these details without attachments. What I mean by that is that when you're focusing on these details, you can't allow yourself to say, well, that's not supposed to be like that. Let's say you're having a dream in your family home and you start to realize all these details. Some of these things are going to be slightly off. The front door will have a different doorknob, and you'll realize that the picture that is usually on this wall is on another wall. You'll start to piece this together. What you're doing is you're piecing together conscious breakdowns into a subconscious space, and you're pulling yourself out of the subconscious reality and anchoring yourself into the conscious reality, and then you'll wake up. Because things are just, your focus is becoming too engaged in the dream on how things are supposed to be, and you're breaking the dream. You're breaking the subconscious experience with your conscious attachments. So like I said, focus on the details, but focus on the details without attachments. See the details and say, okay, well, look at it from an abstract space instead of a judgmental space. Oh, that's not supposed to be there. Just say, okay, well, I'm in my home. What is this dream supposed to be about? I don't care. The doorknob is different. What's around me. That kind of a focus, that kind of perspective in that space allows the dream to continue on, because you're not bringing in your linear time into a non-linear experience. And the non-linear experience will continue to get more complex and go on, because your non-linear time is not breaking, or your linear time is not breaking that non-linear experience. Another way to do this, focus on these details, is not to specifically, without the attachment, is to not to specifically look at or focus on the detail with your dream eyes, but use your peripherals. See these details. Like, you could be looking at the tree right in front of you, but you can see the car to your left. You can see the bird to your right. You can see the chair over there. You can see the this over there. That's another way to hold the space without having the attachment, the linear attachment. Once you get really good at doing that, then you're really connecting yourself to being able to tap into that lucid space more quickly and more efficiently. Now, once you make those anchor points by making the non-linear experience, the non-linear time thicker in a sense, once you make those connections without the attachment, that's when you can become lucid, and that's when you can interact with that world more easily. What I mean by that is, let's say I had a dream. This is a good example of something that actually happened. I'm having a dream in my old childhood home. I realize all these things are different, but I'm still in the home, so I don't really care. So that's anchoring me in a space of, oh, I'm in a dream. I get to that space of, somebody's talking to me in that dream. So I realize that's the focus. That's what I'm supposed to be focusing on. The person in that home talking to me. I allow, like, you're listening to somebody, but you're not really paying attention. Like, you're focusing on the peripherals. Do that in your dreams. The more time you spend in that space, in a sense, allowing the dream focus to focus on you, but you're really focusing on the time that's happening around you to allow yourself to become more lucid. Once you get to a certain time point, and this will get easier over time, I'll need less time over time. Once you get to a certain point, that's when you can break the dream, because you're anchored there now. And now, instead of me having to sit on this chair listening to this dream character talk to me about, whatever nonsense they're talking to me about, once I've anchored myself into that dream time by focusing on the details, by not having the attachment, that's when I can get up out of that chair and walk out of the door. And even when I grab the door, I can feel the door is different. That's another challenge too. The door handle's different. And that could trigger you to break the dream, because you're in that grabbing of that door handle, you're saying, this is not the door handle. This is supposed to be like this. When you're bringing in that supposed to be focus, you're disconnecting yourself from the dream. So I've done this before. I sat in that space, realized that I'm in a dream, listened to this dream character talk and talk and talk and talk, looked at all the things that were out of place in my childhood home. And then once I realized that I had enough energy anchored in that dream to become lucid, I got up out of that chair, walked out of the door, and immediately just flew right out of the courtyard, over the street, like into like the apartments are looking different, the street looks different, the houses are rearranged differently. None of that matters, because the more you focus on all of that stuff, the harder it is to be invested in that dream and what you want to do in that dream. So in this dream, I wanted to fly. So that's what I did. I walked out of the door, realized that all this stuff was different, and then got outside and was so anchored in that lucid space that I could just fly. I didn't even have to like doggy paddle, which is another like trick that I've done as far as flying. You just jump, and then once you're in the air, you're moving vertically, so you can experience the time that happens between being on the ground and jumping. And in that space of going up and then coming down, you'll realize that you're in a dream even more, on like a dream sort of physiological space. And then you can keep yourself in the air. How I do that is by doggy paddling. I don't have to do that all the time. It depends on how deeply I'm in that dream. But I've found that it as a kid, I've been doing it as a kid. So I found that it's a good trick to be able to do that. But in this dream, I was so anchored in that lucid space. I walked out of the door, stepped off the 2 steps out of the door, and then just kind of just stepped into the air and then immediately flew. And I was just floating up over the courtyard, looking over everybody, seeing the details, seeing people in their homes, like neighbors in their homes. And some people were in different parts of this apartment complex. Like this person was supposed to be in number 10, but they were in number 8. This person was supposed to be in this building, but they were in this building. That neighbor was supposed to be in that building, but they were in that building. All these things are triggers to disconnect you from the dream. But if you focus on them, then you'll take your focus away from, in that moment, which is the focus of flying. So yeah, I'm not going to attach any kind of like, this is what dreams are for, or anything like that. It's so complex. It's way more than what any one person is telling you. Your dreams are all encompassing of your conscious experience. Your subconscious mind connectors are basically like how they say you use only a fraction percentage of your brain. Well, the subconscious part of your brain, your mind, is everything else. So when you're tapping into your dream space, you're tapping into that 99th percentile of who and what you are outside of this linear experience. So to say that this is what it is just arrogant, first of all, and it's going to be missing out on a lot of who and what you are on a deeper level. And from this experience, from this antenna, you're really only going to be able to translate a small percentage of who and what you are. And from my experience, you're only really needing to translate a small percentage of who and what you are in this time frame, in this experience. And then you're done. The experience of how you leave and is just as insignificant as how you got here. It's about the experience itself. There's an energy, there's a time, there's a potency of time, subconscious and conscious time, that we are to tap into, achieve in a sense. And once you meet that point, then you'll be done. I'm saying is that once we tap into our dreams, it'll make that linear time more vibrant. and more full. It'll be more, well, in a sense, we'll be able to do more in less time. Because if you don't do more in less time, you'll be forced to do less in more time. It's not about the time. It's not about the quantity. It's about the quality of your time. And what I'm saying, why I focus so much on dreams and interpret so much and share so much in relation to the subconscious reality, is because dreams will heavily affect the quality of your time, the quality of your experience. And the more and more we are anchored in this linear, conditioned version of time, the harder it is to experience our infinite selves. As much of that small percentage as possible. Not saying that you can tap into all of it and all this other stuff. I'm saying if we are interpreting a 0.001% in this linear time, in this conscious reality, not all of us are even tapping into the 80th, 70th, 60th, 90th percentile of that 0.001% of experience. And that's where we lose ourselves. We're already a fraction of ourselves. And then you're going to be a fraction of yourself if you lock yourselves into the illusions. Reconnecting with your dreams is reconnecting with yourself and disconnecting a large part of the anchors held within these illusions.